Hi and welcome to Ryvis Rambles, where I talk about whatever the fuck I want. And in today's video, I want to talk about KAIBUTSU, also known as Monster. It's another movie by Kore-eda, and well, at this point I think it's safe to say that I'm a fan of his works. I also already made videos about two of his other movies, Shoplifters and Nobody Knows. The movie begins with Mugino, a single mother who can't help but notice that her son is acting strangely. She assumes that he's being bullied and confronts the school about it. However, the movie is about so much more, which I can't talk about without treading into spoiler territory. So if you're only interested in my opinion, you can jump to this part. The movie starts with a fire, which will become important later. While Mugino and her son Minato, who I'll be referring to as Mugino throughout this video, are watching the firefighters taking care of the fire, Mugino, the son, asks his mother if a human who got a pig brain implanted is still considered a human. This is just the beginning of many strange incidents that follow. Mugino comes home from school one day with dirt in his bottle or missing a shoe, for example, which all indicates that he must be bullied at school. When his mother gently but firmly presses him for an answer, Mugino claims that it's his teacher, Hori-sensei, who apparently told him that he had a pig brain. As a concerned and caring mother, she of course wants justice for her son and a proper punishment for the teacher. But the faculty's response is lacking. Mugino becomes more and more depressed, and Saori escalates the situation until the teacher is fired. However, we then learn from the teacher's perspective, which picks up where the fire started, that he didn't do any of the things Mugino accused him of. The only violent act was an accident when he bumped into Mugino. Of course, Hori-sensei wants to know why Mugino is claiming all that stuff, and that's where we get to the core. Mugino has a friend, Hoshikawa Yori. Hoshikawa is being bullied at school, and Hori-sensei thinks that Mugino is one of his bullies. And while Mugino doesn't actively bully Hoshikawa, he doesn't want to speak to him in front of the others. Not only because he's afraid of becoming a target as well, but because he's afraid of his own feelings for Hoshikawa. So when his mother asks what's wrong with him, he rather blames the teacher than tell the truth. He sees how Hoshikawa is treated not only by their classmates, but by his own father as well, and that's scary. This is also where Mugino got the pig brain idea from. Since Hoshikawa likes boys, his father claims he's a monster. That he's a thing with a pig brain, not a human, because he's not normal. Mugino learns all this because the two of them spend a lot of time together in secret. They found an abandoned train car which they decorated and use as a hangout spot. They also escape into the train car when a heavy rainstorm hits. Even though it's dangerous, Mugino runs to Hoshikawa's house where he finds him in a bathtub after presumably being abused by his father. He helps Hoshikawa out of the tub and together they run to the train car, convinced that the big crunch is going to happen and that they'll be reborn. The big crunch is this theory where the universe's expansion stops and the universe collapses in itself.
最終的には宇宙がいっぱいいっぱいまで膨らんだらパーンって割れるんだよ。
So it's basically the end of the world. Meanwhile, Hori-sensei has a revelation as to why Mugino lied. And when he visits him during the rainstorm to apologize, Saori finds that Mugino's gone. Together, they search for the boys and find the abandoned train, but the kids aren't there. The movie ends with Mugino and Hoshikawa emerging from the bottom of the car, wondering whether they've been reborn. The rainstorm is over and the boys run through a field in the sun. As always, I went into this movie with no prior knowledge, and let me tell you, I was absolutely surprised by the turn of events. I did not see that coming. The only thing I thought from seeing the movie poster was that the two kids were siblings, and I thought they were getting bullied. So I was 50% right. Or 25% since it's only Hoshikawa who's getting bullied. Mugino's only tormented by himself and the weight of society's judgment. Funnily enough, when Mugino's mom talks about him starting an ordinary family, my first thought was, what if he doesn't want that? And well, I guess he doesn't want that. I also had a feeling that Hoshikawa was gay when he petted Mugino's head, but at that point I still thought I was reading too much into it. Like, I absolutely didn't get the pig brain stuff which was mentioned a couple of times. I mean, I understood that Hoshikawa and Mugino had some kind of feelings for each other, but it took me a good minute to realize that having a pig brain meant being gay. So when Mugino tells his mom that he's got a pig brain, he's indirectly telling her that he's gay. Okay, but Let me try and get my thoughts in order and give this a bit more of a structure. First of all, I absolutely love the storytelling. The story is told from 3 different perspectives. First, Mugino's mom, then Hori-sensei, and lastly, Mugino himself. And with each perspective, we learn a little bit more about what really happened. We also have certain sounds like the trombone and certain visuals like the fire that for one serve as a reference point for where we are on the timeline, and for another indicate time jumps like the lake, for example. As I mentioned before, I didn't know what the movie was about. So at the beginning, I thought this movie was going to be more of a social critique, criticizing the Japanese school system, etc. I guess it is a social critique, but criticizing something entirely different. It's more of a criticism of how our society works. Because the fact that Mugino couldn't be honest about his feelings, since homosexuality is still very much connected to shame, a simple lie leads to a huge misunderstanding which causes an innocent teacher to get fired. And not only did Hori-sensei lose his job, he almost committed suicide after the fact. Also, Hori-sensei standing on the roof wasn't the only time I thought someone was going to die in this movie. When Mugino's mom enters his room during the rainstorm and he's not there, I thought he jumped out the window. Or when he pushed Hoshikawa away in the train car and then left, I thought Hoshikawa hit his head so badly that he died from it. And lastly, when Mugino wants to pick up Hoshikawa and finds him badly bruised in the tub. Here I thought Hoshikawa's dad either drowned him or he actually committed suicide by slitting his own wrists. Luckily, none of these turned out to be true, but it still goes to show how scary and dangerous it can be to be yourself, even though and especially if it isn't harming anyone else. And yet, the movie carries an incredibly positive message that happiness should be for everyone, and I absolutely agree with that sentiment. Now, before we get to the ending, I wanted to talk about my favorite scene. When Hoshikawa claims he's been healed, but then immediately takes it back.
僕ね、病気治った。
治ったって。
普通になったんだよ。
もともと普通だよ。
今まで遊んでくれてありがとね。
ありがとうね。ごめん、嘘。
It's not supposed to be funny, but the way it's played out, it was just so funny to me. I also love how true Hoshikawa stays to himself despite being bullied at school and being abused at home. He's so strong for that, especially at his age, and I think they're around 11 or 12 years old. Then there are 2 scenes that I didn't get at all. The eraser scene and the scene where the school director, I think her name was Fushimi, trips that child in the supermarket. Like, why? So if you can enlighten me, feel free to leave it in the comments. And one last thing, when I looked up the genre, I mainly found the terms psychological, drama, mystery, thriller, and so on. And while I agree with mystery and drama, I'd also put it in the coming of age genre. Do with that information what you want. Alright, the ending. The movie leaves us with an open ending. We don't know whether the boys survived the rainstorm or not. But even if they survived, it's still Kore-eda who we're talking about. So there are no happy endings. At least in the movies I've watched so far. So in my opinion, there are 2 possible endings. Either they survived, which would be a happy ending at the first glance, but the fact that Hoshikawa has to move away doesn't change.
なんかさ、転校するみたいなんだよね。
どこに？
おばあちゃんの家。
And I don't know about you guys, but as a child, I could never maintain a friendship with a person that moved away. Heck, I couldn't even maintain friendships with people that moved schools or classes for that matter. And even though they've mended their friendship, will Mugino be able to be true to himself, just like Hoshikawa, especially once he's on his own? And the second option, which in my opinion is the much happier ending, is that they're both dead and live happily ever after as ghosts. At least they'll be forever young and free-spirited, if you will. My love and appreciation for Hoshikawa overshadowed everything else so that I forgot to mention something important. I'm too lazy to change over my pajamas for this bit though, so voiceover it is. I wanted to talk about how I didn't like Hori-sensei at first, because we were on the same level of knowledge as Saori. And as Saori, we of course believe her son, who paints Hori-sensei as a bully. He also comes across as an asshole when they meet for the first time, but that might just be Saori's perspective, who's already prejudiced against him, which makes her an unreliable narrator. I didn't even want to see his perspective, because I didn't want him to be redeemed for his actions. But that's the thing, it's not until we get Hori-sensei's side of the story that we learn he's innocent and just trying to be a good teacher. So the movie basically shows us that it's not only important to let people be whoever the fuck they want, as long as no harm is done, yada yada, but also that it's important important to remember there's always more to a story than we might think, and it's important to hear all perspectives before forming an opinion. That's all. How about you? How did you interpret? How about you? How did you interpret the ending? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If listening to random people talking about random stuff on the internet appeals to you, leave a like and subscribe. And if you have any topic you'd like to hear me ramble about, leave your suggestions in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching and have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye bye!